Hi, class. Welcome to World Culture Humanities 210. I am Professor Moore, and I'm super excited to be here with you for the next 9 weeks learning about basically us, everything it means to be human. When we look at culture, when we look at cultural texts, when we look at anything that we can think that makes us human, that somehow is a part of our culture and that sets us apart from other species. So give me just a second here to open my slideshow. All right, class. So I just want to give us just a quick overview of class and talk a little bit about our assignments this week. Oh, hold on, let me fix this. All right, so if you're watching this video, that means that you have found your way into class. So good job on that. If you have any problems with navigating, figuring out, how to get yourself on track and organize this first week, please reach out to me. And along those lines, guys, if there's anything you need in the next 9 weeks pertaining to class, pertaining to your educational journey, just reach out to me. I am here to help you be successful, and I want to see you guys be successful. And I know that you all will. I'm not going to say that this is an easy class, but as far as other classes are concerned, this is a really interesting and fun class. And when you have interesting and fun classes, it really helps us to bring our best forward, right, and do the as best work as we can in those classes. So make sure you review the syllabuses and the policies when you first come into class. You will see a start here button. Best practice is to click that and just walk through every page of class. Do that one time to help get yourself organized, adjust it to, where all the materials are and everything. And then as far as then it goes for the remainder of class, you can just go to that modules link and it'll show you everything for that week. So our class is 9 weeks long. It ends on April 12th, and our weeks run from Monday to Sunday. So Monday is always the first day of the week. Sunday is always the last day of the week. And if you notice the way the assignments and the discussions are set up, it always shows them as due on Sunday. So that doesn't mean that that's the to do date, guys. That just means that that's kind of like the last day to get those submitted. So I know assignments, quizzes, it's okay if you guys wait till Sunday to get those in. But as far as those discussions go, it's important that you have your initial discussion post posted by Wednesday each week, and then you have all week to get in those other participation posts. And best practice is 3 posts, 2 days a week. That helps you and get in there, get your attendance, maintain a good flow with the discussions, and kind of get that information. Because, the stuff we talk about in the discussions, you can definitely use that, for your assignments, for your quizzes, when we do our research papers and our country presentation. Everything ties together. All right. So, we do have a couple of big projects due in class, and that doesn't sound too bad because they're pretty much the same project. It's just you're going to format them differently. So we have our country presentation and our research paper due at the end of class. And if you guys see when you go through the modules in the assignment, we kind of like build up on those assignments, so you're not overwhelmed at the end of class. We'll do bits and pieces of it as we go along. So the country presentation is basically the condensed PowerPoint presentation of that research paper, right? So, generally when you make a PowerPoint, you don't put every word of what you're presenting on the slides, because that just makes it kind of boring and uninteresting, because basically we're just kind of reading along with what you're saying. So, best practice is to put those few key points that you want to talk about, and then, you kind of talk around those, talk more about it. Generally, visuals are really good in presentations, so PowerPoint presentations. So that's the way to kind of think of that presentation that you're going to do in PowerPoint. That's kind of your aesthetic visual side to that research paper, which is that more traditional, a format of just reading about your research and study on your culture of choice. So when it comes to your culture of choice, you are free to pick any culture that you want. And I was trying to think off the top of my head like a good estimate of numbers, but I'm thinking, I mean, thousands, if not tens of thousands, cultures that even if they're still not around, because I have a background in archaeology. I'm okay if you guys want to look at ancient cultures. Just email me first, so we can kind of go over that to make sure you fit the parameters. But you're free to choose whatever culture you want. There is a caveat to that. There are a couple of caveats to that, a few actually. We don't want to use the United States because, for the most part, we're kind of all very familiar with that culture. So, the idea is to help expand our other understanding of cultural diversity. So, you want to try to think of somebody else. And then it will be on a first come, first serve basis because we don't want everybody doing the same culture. So if you guys already maybe have an idea of the culture that you want to use in mind, go ahead and email those to me. And then, just in the order that you email me, who's ever, so, if I get calls for Japan at the same, I'm going to look and see which one was sent first. So along those lines, it's a good idea to maybe have a few ideas of a few different cultures that you want to use, just in case somebody has already gotten yours first. And as soon as I get that first response from guys about what culture you want, I will start putting up a list in our announcement section of class. And so I'll put your name, and then I'll put your culture, so you guys can, you just go, and anytime you email me, I'll keep editing and updating that, so you guys just can go in that announcements and look at that list. Um, Last little caveat is that when it comes to cultures, we want to try to stay away from that kind of pan-ethnic generalization. So what I mean by that is that a lot of times we lump cultures together into one big group, right? We say African Americans, European/Caucasians, Asians, Native Americans, Hispanic. Those are all terms for the larger. It's kind of like a larger thing, right? It's like if you're Hispanic, there's a lot of different subcultures under there that make up Hispanic groups, right? I mean, you've got Mexican, you've got Spain over in Europe, kind of the originator, right? You've got Brazil, Argentina, in many ways they're all Hispanic cultures, yet they're still individual cultures. So when we pan ethnic, we take them all and kind of lump them all together because we have these cultures that have these similar cultural texts. That's a good way to say it, right? But at the same time, they're still individuals. So, we say like Arabs or Middle Eastern, we don't point out those specific cultures like the Kurds or oh man, I'm failing. Uh, oh man, my mind is really going blank. I'm so sorry. It's old age getting to me. The older you get, the more stuff you put in your brain, and it kind of, you know, makes some of those pathways harder to get back to. Oh, I'm so mad. Basidi, no, those are more of an African culture. It's something like that. Okay, anyway, sorry guys. I'm getting a little lost in thought there. But you guys, I think you get my point is that I'm looking for those specific cultures and trying to stay away from that larger pan ethnic group. All right. All right, so just a little overview of kind of our assignments this week and just kind of the structure of the way that class goes, okay? All right, so we know that our classes run from Monday to Sunday, so our discussions will always be open from Monday to Sunday. As I said, you want to be active at least 2 days each week. You want to have that, sorry, I have one substantive that should say two there. You see later on I have it as two, but you want to have those two participation points, your initial post, and don't forget that we have our introduction discussion this week too. That's kind of like our icebreaker, way for us to build community, way for us to create our safe space. Because guys, even though we're not all together in class and we do this online, this is our safe space for learning and growing. We're all here to learn and grow, and we're going to do that together. And we're going to have a good time doing that, because there's so much we could talk about when it comes to what it means to be human, how we behave as humans, and then these things that make us human. So it's easy to have a good time in this class. All right, when it comes to your work, your assignment, and your discussions, it's important that you're always backing up your ideas and your critical analysis with support. So a good rule of thumb is at least one citation and then matching reference in your work. So a good way to think of that is one per paragraph. So one in-text citation per paragraph, and then you have that reference page, or in the discussions, kind of that reference list at the bottom there. When it comes to our late policy, it's basically no late work allowed. However, guys, we understand that emergencies happen. Murphy's Law is indeed a real thing. So, in the case of an emergency, reach out to me before the due date, and we can try to work something out. If you get more than, I think it's the same with the online as the Eagle Vision, but if you don't participate for like 2 weeks in a row, then it's basically like two strikes, and you're out. So it's important that you're in class, you're engaging in those discussions, and you're getting your work in on time. And like I said, guys, I'm here for anything you need. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. I do have office hours. I forgot to put them down, but they're pretty much all week. I have different classes that I teach, so I've always got an office hour open. They're usually in the afternoons. It looks like I know one of ours is going to be on Tuesday from 1 to 2. We may have one this afternoon too. So I know Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I always have offices from 1 to 4. So you can always, I give everybody the same link. So you can always, catch me if you need to. And then if you look at those office hours and they don't match up with your schedule, and you want to catch me live at another time, just reach out to me and we can always schedule a private session. So, this week, starting out, we're just kind of getting a basic introduction and general idea of what is culture, and as I said, how that relates to what it means to be human. So with our first discussion question, we are looking at cultural texts. So a good way to define cultural texts are as objects, actions, behavior that reveal cultural meaning. So something like a photograph, it's this visual representation we have of something, right? Be that person, place, animal, mineral, vegetable, right? It's something that is existing in this reality, that is a part of our lives, a part of who we are as individuals, and a part of who we are as the collective, right? So, so that photograph is going to be a cultural text because it's something that has meaning to it. It's something that, speaks to us. In many ways, there's an emotional connection, there's a mental connection, psychological, spiritual connection to it. And, that could maybe even be something just as, I was going to say, as mundane as like maybe candles, or like certain fragrances that you include in your life. There's a lot of emotional, psychological, and cultural ties. A good one is like with Sage. Many Native American groups, not all of them, right? Because we're not going to be panethic and group them all together. But there are some of them that use Sage as a cleansing ritual. The Lakota do that. I have worked with the Lakota, so I know that they like to use sage a lot, and that's because they live out there on the prairie where it grows all over the place. So just some different ideas of what a cultural text could be. It could be food. It could be certain herbs. Like I said, it could be certain, aromo aromatherapeutic, aromatic type things, clothing, even something as mannerisms or like colloquialisms, the way we speech, the way we speak, our manner of speech, our languages, our traditions, our customs, um, the way that we set up our family structures, all of these are going to be something that represents us as a culture. And then, like I said, that has some meaning to us. So it has an individual representation too, kind of representation, reflection of who we are. So when we're studying culture, we pretty much have two basic perceptions. Life is not all black and white, but when it comes to looking at culture, you're either part of the in group or you're part of the out group, right? There's really, I mean, you can have mediators in the middle, but for the most part, it is kind of, you have the in group and the out group. So when it comes to studying culture, we really take an anthropological approach to that. So what we call our two perspectives are the etic and the emic. Okay, so with the etic, it is more like you're the outsider looking in. So you're the one who has come to observe what this other culture is doing. And then from the emic perspective, that's you, that's ego. Ego indicates, in anthropology, we indicate you, the source of all the cultural information that the anthropologist is gathering, that observer is gathering of the behaviors and observations of that specific society, right? So as the emic, as ego, you are the one that is inside experiencing the culture. You grew up in that culture, so you can see how those perspectives and those understandings are going to take are going to be a little different, and it comes down to just kind of understanding, and that outsider perspective. You haven't always grown up in that culture, so there are going to be things you don't understand. At the same time, I could say that as members of that specific culture, there are still things that we don't understand about our own cultures, right? And that's just part of being human, part of that, part of life, part of learning and growing in life. So when it comes to studying cultures, we always want to try to take that emic perspective so that we have that compassion, respect, and understanding, and of what we would consider our host culture. And that's the culture that we're studying. So when you go to do your research papers and your PowerPoint presentations, that's your host culture. So even though you're not actively, more likely not actively participating with them, it's still important to have that compassion, respect, and understanding. Relativism comes into play there. It's the idea that everybody does stuff differently. And it's not that we have to be like, oh, everybody does stuff differently, so it's okay if people do bad things to each other. It's not like that. Relativism is about understanding that everybody does stuff differently. And if we want to help us all as a collective species of human beings move forward together, then we have to support the people in that culture that want to see the changes. As the outsiders, we can't come in and be like, well, like people did in the past with colonialism and contact, be like, oh, you cultures are childlike and you don't understand anything, and we're so great and we know everything, so we're pretty much going to burn down your house, kick your dog, tell you you're wrong, your wife's wrong, your kids are wrong, what you believe is wrong, what you eat is wrong, how you dress is wrong, how you look is wrong, and we're here to tell you it's right. That's not what relativism is about. That's colonialism. That's ethnocentrism, right? We want to always have, to always work from that place of compassion, respect, and understanding, because that ultimately is what makes us human and how we all, learn and grow as individuals and together. And so basically on this slide, it's kind of a rewording of what I was just talking about, it's important to always try to take that unbiased kind of non-judgmental stance when we're looking at different cultures, because we know that there are a lot of cultures that do things differently from us. As America, as that collective culture, we have, on that large governmental political scale, we have a lot of conflict with other cultures different from us. We get along with a lot of other cultures that are different from us. Compassion, respect, and understanding is always the way to go. And we don't politics is a part of what it means to be human. But as far as, we keep that at that cultural level. We don't really get down in class. I don't get too political about anything really. But when it comes to this class too, we don't get really political in that. I mean, I guess, I guess if you want to research a subculture, I never thought of it that way before. I always think of cultures as in the collective groups, but it just occurred to me a fun idea is maybe if someone wants to be really creative and look at a subcultural group. So, that would be something like looking at different political groups, maybe looking at different types of clubs or association within the larger culture. That might be kind of interesting. Someone can come up with something, creative and clever enough there. I'd be willing to go along with that. That'd be kind of cool, guys. So when we're looking at cultural texts, looking at these things that make us human beings, because I would say something like, to say that, oh, Reeboks or McDonald's or Nike shoes, those aren't really those things that make us human. Yeah, it's part of it, but that's on a different scale. That's more, once again, we're going back up into kind of those higher scales of society, not higher as in better, but just as in larger, and those would be more like the corporation and globalization side of it that is kind of against cultural diversity. So when we're thinking about those texts, but be more creative. Don't just, think about popular culture, globalization that kind of influences all of us. Think about those things specific to either your culture or, like I said, another culture. Actually, I haven't said this to you guys yet, but in researching your culture this week and in some of our discussions, if you want to, share certain things that are pertinent to that discussion about your culture, I feel free to do that too. All right. So in looking at those cultural texts, it's really important to look at that idea of meaning and, that target audience, because it's like I said, it's going to, those things are going to have more of this symbolic, emotional aspect to it, as so than just those, the corporate cookie cutter type things, right? And so just some points to think about, who's it aimed at, who made it, produced it, where's it from, what's the site, the space to view it, to consume it, is there intended audience, what's the context, what's the impact of that contest text, and it all, and putting that, simply, it all comes down to that idea of finding that meaning. So let's think of a little good example here. So look around at your living room. Maybe you're in your home office slash student, workspace, right? And look at how that is set up. Is there anything in there that you look around and you see that is a cultural text? Like, I look around my living room and I probably see things that are more exemplary of probably my individual taste more so than my larger culture. But then at the same time, I would say there's probably a lot that speaks to kind of my indigenous roots of being a European American and having a strong cultural background and like, my German ancestry and my Irish ancestry and kind of that those ancient Celtic people. I definitely see that exemplified. And then, basically my love of animals and nature. So those would kind of be my individual texts. And then I guess in the larger scheme, see, in America, we're so caught up in that globalization, like kind of cookie cutter, making everybody the same. So of course I have elements of that too. We have our TV, we have our electronic devices, and we have our comfort items too. So think about how things are laid out, how the decorations, your colors scheme, your feng shui, how are those reflective of your larger culture, maybe even values of your larger culture, or think about a classroom, just a standard classroom, think about the way that that's set up, that's set up to reflect those basic underpinnings of what makes culture, of how we engage with each other in social situations, and it's usually in a kind of authoritarian, hierarchical, I can't say it, hierarchy type setting, right? Which is, once if we compare that to our living room, that's more that basic underpinning of a family, right? Of how we are set up as families culturally, whereas a classroom is going to be more culturally representative of how our society is organized socially based on, those classes, those structures, those authority figures, our rules, our ethics, things of that nature. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. And so we looked over the class and requirements. We looked at what cultural texts are. There's that definition again. Your reflection assignment this week is it's basically all just about your interpretation of defining and understanding culture. And once again, make sure that you are always including that support. Make sure that support is in APA format, and then always try to follow that 80-20 rule of originality, where you write in 80% in your own words and have no more than 20% cited sources. So if you go to the modules link, scroll all the way down to the bottom past module 9, you will see a check my draft folder, and that's exactly what that is, guys. It's just a place where you can go and submit your assignments, your discussions. You can use it for other classes. I mean, I don't check that folder unless you want me to go, unless you ask me to specifically go look at something on your paper. But for the most part, that is strictly there as a tool for you guys. It runs your papers to turn it in before you even submit it. So, you can, go and paper and look at your Turnitin score, edit it, whatever you need to, and resubmit that as many times as you want. And then of course, if you submit something and you're coming up with more than 20% highlighted, then it's definitely a good idea to go back and change that around, because once you get over that 20%, we start dipping into those realms of plagiarism. And a lot of times with plagiarism, it's just not all just flat out, I didn't do my work, somebody else did it, here it is. Most of the time it's just having trouble with academic writing and balancing out our own voices with that support that we need to include. So a good rule of thumb there is don't copy and paste from the internet and put that in your paper, and don't use a lot of quotes. It's more important that you paraphrase, that you put those quotes in your own words, and then you simply just have to put the author's name and date at the last name, that is, and date at the end of that, and boom, you got your APA requirement there. So need any help with any of that, guys, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I know that we will have a great class, and I'm excited to get started, guys. So yay, thanks, bye.